So I want to spend just a few minutes looking at the prompt and what it is exactly that you have to do for this. Remember that essay 5 is all about constructing an essay that analyzes things like diction, imagery, detail, and syntax, and looking at the overall tone or meaning that's created by that. Okay, so again, I would recommend that in your introduction, you use some of that information at the top to craft your introduction. So here's what it says in that paragraph. In 1997, then United States Secretary of State Madeleine Albright gave the commencement speech to the graduating class of Mount Holyoke College, a women's college in Massachusetts. Read the following excerpt from her speech carefully. Then write a well-developed essay in which you analyze the choices Albright makes to convey her message to the audience. So your task in this essay is to analyze the choices. So that's what we've been talking about in this unit. Choices that an author makes. So you could choose to write about diction and look at some specific word choices that create some sort of overall effect. You could talk about syntax and maybe find where she uses some short sentences to really emphasize a point. You could write about imagery, where she uses appeals to the senses of sight, sound, hearing, any of those 5 senses. You could choose to write about the overall tone and words that she uses to create a tone. I also gave you a handout that had those tone words on it, and then in that there were some descriptions of sentence types. So you could even talk about the grammatical or the rhetorical sentence types that she used. So go back and look at that handout when you're trying to figure out exactly what you want to write about. So in your introductory paragraph, I would probably say something to the effect that in 1997, Secretary of State Madeleine Albright delivered a commencement speech at this college. So like you can use that information in that little blurb in your introduction. The last sentence then of your introduction should be a thesis statement. And so here's a skeleton of what your thesis statement could look like. Madeleine Albright employs blank, blank, and blank to illustrate that one must choose to act with courage and faith. That's kind of her overall point, and you'll see that in her first paragraph, where she says, as individuals, each of us must choose whether to live our lives narrowly, selfishly, and complacently, or to act with courage and faith. So everything she's saying to the graduates is you must act with courage and faith. Your job as the writer is to analyze her rhetoric to see how she gets to that point. So you can just plug in the 3 devices that you want to write about. So you're going to have to go back and reread this and annotate it and figure out what devices are used. So for example, if I wanted to write about diction, I could put diction in that spot. If I wanted to write about syntax, I could put syntax there. And if I wanted to write about connotations or parallel structure or the appeal to the emotions or the use of allusion or the use of metaphor or simile, all of those are fair game for writing an essay of rhetorical analysis. So for example, if I were to write about syntax, syntax is all about sentence structure, sentence length. So here's what I might do. Look at line 9. The Berlin Wall is now a memory. Underline it. How many words are in that sentence? 7 words. Now look at line 16. We could relax. Underline it. How many words are in it? 3. Now look at line 21. The fighting in Bosnia has stopped. How many words is it? 6 words. So we've got a 6-word sentence, a 7-word sentence, and a 3-word sentence. I might use those 3 sentences and talk about each of those 3 sentences in that paragraph about how Madeleine Albright uses very short sentences throughout her speech to emphasize certain points. right? That's how you would discuss syntax. Okay, let me give you another example. Look at line 49. She says, I have met, underline it. Look at line 52. I have seen, underline it. Then look at line 56. I have talked, underline it. Then look at line 60. I have met, underline it. What do you call it when an author repeats grammatical structures that are similar to one another? It's on this poster. You probably are more familiar with the term in geometry to describe lines that never intersect. Parallelism. So I could talk about how she frames 4 major points at the end of her speech on this parallel structure, and how that parallel structure is the rhetorical underpinning for her main points at the very end of the speech. Now, let's look at something else that we've not talked about. Line 22, circle the word instead. Line 33, circle the word instead. Then go back and read the sentence before it. We could turn our backs now and risk renewed war. Instead, we are renewing our commitment. We could stop there. Instead, we are pursuing a broader prosperity in which those entrapped by poverty and discrimination are empowered to share, and in which every democracy on every continent will be included. If you go back to that handout that has tone vocabulary words on it, and it has types of sentences, there's 2 sections. There's grammatical and there's rhetorical sentences. In the rhetorical sentences portion, it's like Roman numeral 2, point B. You've got loose, periodic, balanced, and then one called antithetical. Here's what it says. Antithetical sentences take 2 ideas that are juxtaposed and put them together. And it does so for effect. And the example is, India is a poetic nation, yet it demands new electrical plants. It is a mystical nation, yet it wants new roads. It is traditionally a peaceful nation, yet it could, if misled, inflame Asia. So that is an example of an antithetical construction. That's exactly what she's done in lines 22 and 33. So I might say antithetical constructions. Now, if I'm thinking about the outline of my essay, paragraph 1 is going to be my introduction with my thesis. I've got the frame of my thesis. Paragraph 5 is going to be the conclusion. Using this example, what's paragraph 2 going to be about? Paragraph 3. And paragraph 4. What do I do in each of those body paragraphs? Cite evidence. So if I'm using Madeleine Albright's exact words, I'm going to mark that using quotation marks. You do not have to choose those 3 examples, but you're welcome to use them. If you want to use those 3 examples of syntax, parallel structure, and antithetical construction, you can. Another one that you can use is allusion. I think you can readily find examples of allusion in Albright's commencement address. An allusion is when you make a reference to something in history. So when she talks about the Berlin Wall, for example, that's an example of allusion. Any questions about this week's essay for rhetorical analysis? We are looking for 700 words. So here's what you're going to have to do in order to get to that 700 words. You're going to have to give lots of examples in each of the body paragraphs. So if you choose diction, you're going to have to write about more than just one word choice. Like you're going to have to probably write about 4 or 5 word choices. So that's going to be key to this essay, is longer body paragraphs.